Hello, David. How are you?
I'm fine, Mr. Declan, and how's yourself?
Very well. Shall we talk about your amazing Sherlock room then?
My dad was from Manchester, England. So when he came to Australia, and me being an only son, uh, he spoilt me rotten. So I grew up with toys and comic books and science fiction and everything like that. But the English side was like the Saint and James Bond and Doctor Who and goodies and all those things. And one of his favourite characters, was Sherlock Holmes. So I used to sit there and watch the movies with him. And I can just remember, like a couple of years ago, I was Sherlock Holmes for about 15 minutes in a school play,
Yeah.
which completely went out of my head. So throughout the years, I've gone on and off with Sherlock Holmes. And then about 2 years ago, I don't know. I was watching the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock series, and it kind of reinterested me in all the Sherlock. And I thought, hmm, I wouldn't mind a Sherlock museum. And so I started creating one in my head, and I thought, well, I've got a back room full of toys. Maybe I could move them into the next room. And so I just went designed a room that Sherlock would live in. I think eBay was a big help. I bought the wallpaper, which was early Victorian. I bought the mat. The chair was basically someone threw out on the curbside, so I thought I'll have that. The fireplace and the clock are probably the best stories because with the fireplace, I was looking on Marketplace, and there was a couple of fireplaces that were good. Some had sold, and some weren't great, and some were expensive. But I found this one, and I said to the lady, "Look, I definitely want that fireplace. Will you please hold it?" And she said yes. And I sent her a photo of the room, which looked very Sherlocky at the time. And she sent me a message back, and she said, "This is very spooky." I said, "What's wrong?" Said, "I'm watching Sherlock Holmes at the moment on the television, and you send me this photo saying that you want that in there." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, okay, well, that's fine. So we got the fireplace in. As you've seen, the way it's designed, it's just a wardrobe, but
Mm.
I've taken the middle door out and put that in. So it looks like a real fireplace. 2, 3 weeks later, one of the guys at work had found the grandfather clock, $50,
Mm.
and it was custom made. And I thought, oh, okay, all right, I'll have that, $50. And she sent me a message back, and she said, "Okay, this is weird." And I said, "Don't tell me you're looking at Sherlock Holmes movie." And she said, "No." She said, "My father's name's David. He built the clock back in '83, and he is a detective.
Wow.
So you must have that clock." And I
Wow.
said, "Yes, I must," and I did. And apparently she had another 80 people after that requesting the clock, saying it's worth a lot more than $50. So
I think what people probably don't realize is this is just a room in your house. And it's so immersive. You
yeah,
walk in there and like that lady was saying, it feels almost eerie and almost like you are stepping back in time.
yeah,
Just because of all the detail. And like you say, every piece in that room has a story behind how
oh
you
yeah,
put it in there.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, I think it took about 3 weekends. I mean, you put the paper up, and then the floor. I think one of the girls came in and looked at the floor and said, "When did you get a wooden floor? Because it's just tiles under there." I said, "No, that's just contact paper.
wow.
Just contact paper, but it does have that effect." So
I can't believe it took only 3 weekends. It looks like a lot more effort.
Sherlock Holmes, consulting detective.
Let's also talk about the outside of the room as well, because
uh,
oh, it's fantastic. And when I first got you involved in the film, well, I didn't know you before any of this. And I knew John and I very briefly knew Blake. And when I spoke to them and said, gonna do a Sherlock thing, they said, we should get this guy David involved because he knows everything there is to know about Sherlock Holmes. But more importantly, he's got a Sherlock Holmes front and also the inside, which we spoke about. But let's speak about the outside now as well and
Yes.
all the
221
detail.
Street, yeah. There's a chap that I met, it must be about 10 years ago. I was a big Doctor Who fan, so I had three London police boxes and Daleks and Cybermen and all these aliens and everything. And I would send a request and ask him if he could build this, that, whatever. So he had built a Dalek and he built the console, the inside the car. And after a while, with all the changes for Doctor Who, it just wasn't the same for me. And I was looking for something a little bit more stable, I guess. And I was like, James Bond, Indiana Jones, Sherlock, always Sherlock in the back of my mind. So I sent him this request. I said, I want you to build the front of 221B Baker Street, the door and the outside, the lights, the whole lot. Can you do it? He said, I sure can. So he did it, I think, in a space of 5 months. That was very quick for him. He's an amazing man. I mean, this guy should work in a props department or BBC. He's just eye for detail. So he was worried that it wouldn't fit. So we measured it and double measured it and made sure there was at least 5 inches from the ceiling. And then he said to me, look, what I'm going to do is, he said, I'm not going to buy a replacement door. I will use your door. And I'll just take that off. I'll put all the letters and the mailbox and everything, the door knocker, and paint it. And then we'll just put it back on, and then we'll put the frame on the outside. But the detail is to see. I mean, he's put the metal fence. It's got lights. When I first saw it go up, I was like, oh, wow. And even Blake, he's been to the museum in England, Baker Street. And he said to me there, he said, when I walk up at the door, he said, I feel like I'm back in England.
Yeah.
So Anthony Clayton is the man's name, and he's, like I said, he's a brilliant man. His crafts is amazing. But
it's very difficult to try and find any differences between the actual museum and that door. And I think anyone that walks into your room is just like, oh my goodness, as soon as they see it. Because like you say, the lights, and there's, you've got those leaves on the ground as well.
Again, that was a bit weird for me, because I went into a bargain shop and you could see little leaves, and I thought, oh, that reminds me of England. So I thought, well, I'll just chuck them out the front, just anything. And even with the mannequins, there's Moriarty and Sherlock and Watson and Mrs. Hudson. There's a copper out the front guarding. So I just kept adding bits and pieces. Anything I could remember from Sherlock, from movies or TV shows. I know there's one thing that I was told, is that I should have a deer's head with the microphones. I don't want to put a deer in there. And so I thought, out of the Baskervilles, I'll get a wolf. So I got a wolf's head, and I just stuffed it with paper, and I put that up on the top. And my other friend, he's got some dogs, so he just printed a dog's print. So we've just got the Hound of the Baskervilles dog print and the head. Something Sherlock would cut the head off and leave it up there as a souvenir.
Well, let's talk about actually filming in there then, because my favorite memory from the days that we did film there, I think we only filmed there one day, and we got I think there was 3 different scenes that we filmed. But probably my favorite memory is actually filming with the front, with the door. And you had the lights on out the front, and do you remember we were throwing the leaves just off camera? So, because something you probably don't realize when you're watching it is that that's actually inside. Like John and Sherlock are just looking straight at your laundry. I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the laundry is facing them. It's kind of weird because when you walk in there, it is just as you said, it's a laundry. But then you turn right. I mean, as you walk straight ahead, you've got the London Police box, so it's still part of Sherlock. And then you've got Baker Street with the wall, and again, that's just wallpaper. And then you've got Sherlock's abode. Open the door, and then you've got his little study inside. So yeah, I try to make it as close as I can. I'm not going to be perfect, but it is pretty good. I mean, when I saw it on film, I thought, wow, I actually done a pretty good job because it looks really different on film. I mean, I know it sounds silly, but when you're looking at it, it's like, okay, it's pretty good. But when you see it on film, it just takes on a different picture.
Do you know what? I think that was probably the riskiest scene or scene I was most nervous about when I was like editing it all together. Because, you've got John, the camera on John and Sherlock, and then the opposite way is actually out in the open. And we filmed that in a completely different place. And so I was so worried that will the shots of 221 and the city actually match? And thank goodness it did. But I think that all the leaves we threw and having our hands with the microphones in the way, that really.
I don't know who suggested it. I don't know if it was you or John, but I put the camera up in front of his face like that. And I love that bit. I thought that was typical Sherlock. Get out of my face.
Yeah, but that part.
You did very well merging those together because I was even thinking, how's he going to do it? Because it's inside the house and then outside. But no, I think you did a brilliant job, Brad.
I was thinking that too, but we just used a lot of lights when we were inside, and it was kind of an overcast day when we were outside. So I think that really helped.
Yeah, and I did very well.
You're being ridiculous, Sherlock. It's your ego and your pride talking. It's your fatal flaw, and this is precisely what got you into this mess in the first place.
One of my other favorite little details as well is actually inside. It just kind of makes me laugh. Like, you've got so many DVDs in there as well, so many just books of Sherlock, and it just kind of makes me laugh that Sherlock lives in that. But on the shelf, if you actually look closely, there's so many Sherlock books about himself. It really just kind of makes it look like a.
I remember doing that. Must be another universe or something. Yeah, I mean, I was a bit worried about the books and all the DVDs being picked up, but again, it does kind of merge in with the scene. So yeah.
Ah, Mr. Holmes, it's great to see you.
Likewise, Lestrade. What mysteries await us today?
You also had another role in the film, not just your amazing sets. You also played Lestrade. Do you have any favorite memories from playing Lestrade, or can you remember how I felt when I asked you?
Yeah, I was very nervous because, as I've said, I'm not an actor. I can ad lib. If you said, here's a script, I want you to get as close as you can. I'll look at it and then I can make up my own lines and go, but it would be close. But when you're reading it line for line, I've got to remember, and I'm like, okay. So I'm trying to do, justice to Lestrade. Like I know from Sherlock, Lestrade, even though he was, the detective policeman, he looked up to Sherlock. He was like a fanboy. So it was kind of like, okay, Sherlock Holmes, hey, okay, calm down. So that's my problem, is that I tend to get overexcited. And, even like being involved in your film, I was like, wow, this is great. I mean, I was happy to be behind the scenes, holding the microphone. But then I was told, we need a Lestrade, and I went, oh. And I didn't know how you wanted it played, and then I thought, okay, I'll just try and play it as best as I could.
Don't do that.
No?
Just watch.
Okay.
You're very stern.
All right.
I remember a lot of days you were way too excited, and I was like, just calm it down. Lestrade's a bit more level-headed.
Yeah, I'm not level-headed. I'm like the Energizer bunny. I just get so excited. And again, it's like I said, to me, like this film that you've done, it belongs in the Sherlock DVD, set. It's Sherlock, and the thing is like, I watched that twice, and I thought, wow, this is Sherlock Holmes. I mean, even John, he convinced me he was Sherlock Holmes. And I know it sounds a bit, goofy, but watching him, I thought, I'm watching Sherlock Holmes. Because he did justice to the character. I mean,
make a good version of Sherlock Holmes, because there's lots of people like you that have such fond memories of Sherlock, and I really wanted to be able to add something to the mythos of Sherlock while also being able to please a lot of people. So having you involved just kind of really comforted me in a lot of ways to hear you constantly say like, this is great. This is exactly Sherlock Holmes. This is what we want. There's lots of franchises where different people take it over and they don't acknowledge what came before, like Star Wars, for example, or even Doctor Who, as you're saying. And I really didn't want that to be the case. So having you on set was a real comfort, but also I feel you added so much value to the film in terms of your acting and all the sets and stuff. When I originally wrote the film, it didn't have the 221B, the door scene out the front, or even at the end. They were in a completely different location. And just having those iconic sets, and even the inside when he's finally solving the case, having those locations just added so much undescribable value, really. So I have to give you a lot of thanks, honestly, David.
My pleasure. I mean, like I said, when Blake said to me, there's a chap he wants to film, he wants to do Sherlock Holmes, he wants to do it in your little museum. I went, go for it. I don't mind. It's like I said, it was very interesting to see how, director and then the actors are working and all that stuff. I mean, I've seen it, 100 times before in TV and movie, but it's different when you're actually involved. It's very special.
It is.
So, I'm very honoured indeed. I love it.
Well, you made every day on set so great. So thank you, David.
That's just my weirdness.